Was even crazier is Jon Jones came out and was like, I'm in negotiations right now for the White House fight.
I'm in negotiations with the UFC about this White House thing as well.
After I had already sent a text to his lawyer saying, never gonna happen ever.
All right, Sunday morning, leaving Las Vegas. Freedom 250 was announced last night at the White House, going down in June. So we're going to talk about this. I honestly thought we were going to see Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, more than likely in the main event. Of course, that's not the main event. That is Justin Gaethje taking on Ilia Topuria for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world, which is a great fight, which is the fight that should happen because obviously meritocracy, and they've got an interim champion. There was people saying that maybe Charles Oliveira or Max Holloway could have gazumped Justin, maybe if they had an insane performance. I'll say this, Charles Oliveira had an insane performance.
You just heard the initial surprise, the expectation. Jon Jones was supposed to be the name headlining the monumental Freedom 250 White House, but he isn't. Rather, we see Ilia Topuria against whoever, the lightweight strap, and soon we'll dive into the heavyweight championship. The actual lack of Jon Jones from such an esteemed, politically weighty UFC fight's watchful eye speaks volume. Is this an intentional slight? A subtle strike against how current draw or reliability? A concept perhaps Jones, with his recent inactivity and past controversies, aren't currently appearing in the UFC's view. Brass. This isn't just about Jones missing a fight. It's about the statement the UFC is making by moving on and moving forward without its powerful an event of this magnitude.
Stopped Max Holloway, didn't put him to sleep per se, but certainly a TKO, so that wouldn't have made sense anyway. Now, I did think Jon Jones, the greatest of all time according to a lot of people, and yeah, probably is, obviously many asterisks to his name. I thought he'd be fighting Alex Pereira, because Alex Pereira vacated the belt. Yuri versus Carlos Ulberg is going down in Miami. That's a great fight. I'm very happy for Yuri Prochazka and for Carlos Ulberg. He's a class act.
It's clear the expectation was high upon Jones to adorn this event, especially against a star like Alex Pereira. But the host highlights those many asterisks attached to Jones's name, an indirect slight reflecting a broader view within the MMA community. For Dana White and the UFC, there means reliability and positive optics are paramount. Was Jones's history, or perhaps his ongoing contractual standoffs and perceived games, just too much of a risk for a card intended to project strength and stability? His exclusion from the biggest stage boosts the narrative that the UFC is no longer waiting for.
Now, there's an interim title going down in the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall, obviously. He's been on the sidelines for quite some time now because of Cyril Gane, because of the double eye poke that he enjoyed and suffered at in UFC 321 in Abu Dhabi, right? He's on the sidelines, he's coming back, he just signed with Eddie Hearn. I gave my thoughts on that the other day. Wasn't being critical of Tom in any way. I wish him nothing but the best, and I want to see Tom Aspinall back in the cage doing what he does best. But I can't help but think that Eddie Hearn's kind of playing games here, but we'll see. I talked about that before. The reality of the situation is, though, he's not ready to come back just yet, so they've done an interim title with Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gane, which...
The heavyweight division has been a whirlwind, and this segment perfectly... The disorder that has permitted like Jon Jones previously had. Tom Aspinall's injury creates an opportunity, but the decision to book Pereira versus acquire for a temporary title card rather than waiting for Jones is a telling move. It signals a clear message from Dana and the UFC. Even if the undisputed champion is unavailable or seemingly unwilling to fight. This isn't just a scheduling conflict, it's a strategic pivot that effectively sidelines Jones from the biggest of the year, trading his potential star power for a fresh, exciting content.
People might think, well, that's weird. I've gone the wrong way. That's weird. He pokes Tom Aspinall and then gets rewarded with an interim title shot. Well, first of all, accidents do happen. It wasn't intentional. I'll give Cyril the benefit of the doubt on that. People get poked in the eye all the time. I don't think they're intentional. But regardless, he is fighting for the interim strap against Alex Pereira, which is very impressive because Alex Pereira will be the first person to ever compete for 3 different titles, 3 different weight classes, which is just, it is insane. I mean, the success that this guy's had is phenomenal.
While the eye poke situation with Cyril Gane might seem like an unfortunate accident, the fact remains, Gane is now rewarded with an interim title shot on the White House card. This decision, under Dana White's final endorsement, says much regarding the storyline with Alex Pereira's historic 3-division title bid, demonstrating a willingness to create new stars to older ones, or wait indefinitely. For Jon Jones, seeing the heavyweight vision advances without him, particularly given a record of such fight, headlining a presidential event, has to feel like a very top might be slipping away, with the UFC making moves that directly impact his reign.
That's Jon Jones would have just taken down Alex Pereira. Pardon me, it's early. I've only had a few hours sleep. But yeah, Jones would have probably taken down Pereira. Wouldn't have been easy, right? Magomed Ankalaev has tried to do that. Other people have tried to do that. Jan Blachowicz tried to do that. But this is Jon Jones we're talking about. Look at what he did to Cyril Gane. And remember, in the first round, even Tom Aspinall couldn't take down Cyril Gane. But Jon could, right? So that's just something to think about. Jon would have probably taken Pereira down and finished him by a ground and pound, you know, just choked him out, whatever. And it could have been a quick performance.
Here's where the attack on Jon Jones truly starts to take shape. A tactical dismissal of his fight style against Alex Pereira. The host suggests Jones would simply take him down and finish him by a ground and bang out a fast showing, implying it would be a less exciting spectacle than the Gane-Pereira matchup. This subtle but effective critique from within the MMA ecosystem is a damaging blow to Jones's marketability. He's trying to put on a show-stopping event. Dana White and the UFC need a thrilling spectacle. Just Jones wouldn't deliver it, thereby justifying his absence without directly attacking his character. It frames his exclusion as a business decision.
Either man is going to shoot a double leg takedown. It's going to be a kickboxing match in 4-ounce gloves. And then when you look at the matchup, on one side you've got Pereira, who's got insane power, who was the middleweight champion, the light heavyweight champion, and now potentially heavyweight champion. Again, legendary stuff. The power will travel. He had knockout power at 185, 205 he will, and at heavyweight he's still going to pack the same amount of punch. Granted, you're fighting bigger people, you're striking bigger people with bigger necks and bigger jaws and just generally heavy, so they'll be able to absorb the blows better, but he's still going to crack a punch, man. Simple as that.
Now, compare that perceived boring outcome with Jon Jones to the fight we are getting. This segment paints a vivid picture of Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira, a guaranteed 4-ounce gloves. The emphasis on Pereira's insane power and his historic pursuit of a third title highlights the sheer excitement and drama the UFC is bringing to the White House. This isn't just a fight, it's a spectacle perfectly suited for a high. Selecting this fight over a potentially dominant, yet less is a clear strategic move, further underlining why Jones wasn't deemed the right fit for such a critical event.
But he's got the punching power. He's not quite as smooth or quite as slick as Cyril Gane, although I'm not saying he's not slick, I'm not saying he's not smooth, I'm not saying he hasn't got great combinations, because he does. He's a brilliant world-class kickboxer. But on the other side, you've got Cyril Gane, who's very, very light on the feet, very bouncy, very floaty. He kind of glides around the octagon and extremely fast for the heavyweight division. I don't think either guy is going to go for a takedown. If it does go down to the ground, it'll be after one of them gets knocked down. Shut up with the announcements, please. I'm trying to do a YouTube video like an absolute bellend walking through an airport and everyone's looking. It's full of UFC fans.
The detailed breakdown of Cyril Gane's slick, bouncy, and extremely fast style, contrasting it with Pereira's raw power, perfectly explains why this interim heavyweight bout is positioned as the star attraction at the White House. The host's animated description, despite airport announcements, it highlights the real eagerness for an open for Dana White. Securing a fight with this, a definite score. The striker clash is a masterstroke for an event needing broad appeal. It's an implicit attack on Jon Jones by showcasing a superior, more universally exciting value and a compelling narrative over the reigning champion's presence.
I don't think either guy is going to go for a takedown. If it does go down to the ground, it'll be after one of them gets knocked down. Shut up with the announcements, please. I'm trying to do a YouTube video like an absolute bellend walking through an airport and everyone's looking. It's full of UFC fans because UFC 326 was last night. Anyway, yeah, if it goes to the ground, it's because one of them knocks each other down and then they go to finish it. So this is going to be a fantastic striking affair. in the co-main event at the White House.
Jim, the presenter's enthusiasm, despite the airport pan, speaks volumes about the quality of the Gain versus Pereira fight chosen for the White House event. He emphatically states it will be a fantastic striking event, a certain crowd magnet for Liberty, 02/. This isn't just a fight, it's a strategic decision by Dana White and the UFC to put on a stylistic clash designed for maximum amusement and widespread popularity. Instantly positioning this as the premier striking affair for such a monumental card, it subtly underscores the earlier criticism of Jon Jones's potentially dominant but less action-packed style, reaffirming the UFC decision to proceed with a revised concept event.
The script has been flipped completely on its head. Remember, he was the interim champion and couldn't get a shot at the undisputed. Hello, she's looking at me with a smirk. Couldn't get a shot at the undisputed with Jon Jones because he wasn't playing games. He had a fight booked against Stipe Miocic, but then Jones certainly was playing games. You know, after the Curtis Blades matchup, we didn't know what he was doing. Now, we don't know what's happening with Tom, right? I assume their eyes are going to be good to go very, very soon, right? Otherwise, Eddie Hearn isn't going to sign a fighter that can't fight, right? So
this is where the Dana White Jon Jones attack story gets its strongest support. The host was playing games after his Curtis Blades matchup, and the Miocic booking directly tying Jones's actions, easy situation, and flipped script in the heavyweight division. Dana White has publicly expressed frustration with Jones's past negotiations and conflict occurrence, and this assessment from the host aligns perfectly with the UFC's decision to sideline Jones from a historic event, emphasizing Jones' perceived stalling. He made justification for his absence from the White House card, quietly showing it as a result of his decisions instead of a random dismissal.
But this time it'll be for an interim belt versus an undisputed belt, which makes the fight even bigger. As I said on another video the other day, it all depends on these contractual negotiations. Eddie Hearn came out and was kind of shitting on Tom's contract and saying that he doesn't get paid what he should get paid if Eddie's going to try and change that contract. And you know, that is what a good manager does, to be fair, and you want the best management team on your side. You certainly don't want an amateur, you don't want a chump, you don't want someone that doesn't know what they're doing. But if he tries to push the goalposts far too far, UFC aren't going to agree to that, and there might be some kind of stalling, and we might have Tom.
The talk regarding Tom Aspinall's contractual discussions and the likelihood of stalling with the UFC presents, though indirectly. Whilst Aspinall is unique, the underlying tension between fighter and promotion over too far, the UFC isn't going to agree, leading to sidelined fighters. This perfect echoes critiques aimed at Jon Jones about his own prolonged negotiations. Dana White's history shows a clear stance. If you're not fighting, the UFC will move on. This business reality serves as a backdrop. Why Jones, despite his record, placeable for the White House card if his terms weren't aligning with the promotions.
He knocked out Jean Silva, and what else did he do? Oh, I mean, listen, he's just must-see TV. And then on the other side, Steve Garcia hasn't got the same kind of brand value as Diego Lopez, but holy shit, man, he's on, I think, an 8-fight win streak, and they're all stoppages, most of them in the first round. I think one of them got to the second round, and you gotta love Steve Garcia. He's a nasty, nasty guy, so that'll be the first fight on the card. I didn't see this one coming. Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dorcas. I didn't expect that one, but it'll be a good fight. Dorcas, he's on a 2-fight win streak. Bo Nickel, of course, represents America to the fullest.
Beyond the interim heavyweight title fight, the host highlights ups on the Freedom 250 White House card, like Steve Garcia versus Diego Lopez and Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dorcas. These aren't just filler fights. They're high-energy, fan-favorite bouts, showcasing emerging talents and tested wins. The inclusion of these compelling contests demonstrates the UFC's deep roster and their ability to build a stacked card without needing Jon Jones. For Dana White, this array of talent serves as an implicit message. The UFC machine is thriving, featuring unmissable television and upcoming icons. Former long-reigning champion isn't on the bill. It's a strategic move that dilutes any perceived snub of Jones by simply offering an abundance of other compelling reasons to watch.
Fair play, right? Obviously, there was talk of Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler competing on that card. Dana said, nah, we ain't interested in that anymore. But it turns out it was the Conor McGregor side. Now, Conor came out and he was doing an interview with Chael Sonnen, and he brought up some good points. He said, listen, it's going to be a sellout with my name involved regardless. It's going to do blockbuster numbers.
You know, like a double sale thing. That's the White House is going to hit no matter what.
And he's absolutely right. When Conor comes back, it's going to be insane, right? And that's just the facts of the matter. So they don't need to put him on the White House card. And he said, they don't put me on 300, they'll put me on 301 or 200, they'll put me on 201.
The host's explanation for White House card is particularly illuminating and can be directly applied to Jon Jones. McGregor's star power is so immense that he doesn't need a marquee event like Freedom 250 to sell out. He's a draw unto himself, able to headline his own 301 or 201 events. While Jones doesn't command the same raw PPV numbers as peak McGregor, this principle suggests to save him for a standalone event rather than the White House. Or alternatively, if Jones wasn't a certainty, why risk the optics on such a high-profile, politically sensitive card? Dana White can choose to elevate new stars on the biggest stage while letting the massive draws or those as less dependable title else.
Do we think Jon Jones actually is retired? That'll be it. We'll never see him again. If it is, it's kind of an unceremonious way to go out. I remember when I retired, I wasn't happy with the way that it ended because I wanted to retire in the Octagon after a fight, win or lose. I wanted to thank the crowd. That's why I was going to take one more fight. I was actually in negotiations to fight Rashad Evans at the O2 Arena in London because I romanticised this idea of thanking the crowd and all this type of stuff and putting the gloves down and going through that whole thing. And my manager, Audiatara, was like, Mike, you're romanticising this in your mind for this big moment, but what you're doing is you're putting your vision.
The contemplation of Jon Jones's retirement and the individual story about an harmonious exit adds a layer of empathy, but also implicit criticism. The idea of Jones going out like this, without a grand farewell in the is sharply different from what legends desire. For Dana White, while he might respect considering Jones's legacy, the actual truth is the UFC cannot afford to idealize a combatant's exit if it impacts or event planning. Jones's absence from the White House card, if it indeed marks his quiet end, is a decision the UFC to have come to terms with.
Also a shame that apparently he needs hip surgery. He was talking about, being riddled with arthritis, got caught on camera. Dana mentioned that again at the press conference.
Is it fair to say then Jon Jones is retired and this is the end of his time?
Yes.
Said he might need a hip replacement. So I hope that all works out for him. And if it is the end of a legendary career, fair play, man. Talk about knocking it out of the park, making an insane amount of money and building a life for yourself. Because that's really what you can do. A lot of people talk shit about the UFC and they say me being a company man. Look at me, for crying out loud. One day you could be me, wandering around an airport with a camera in your hand, looking like an absolute dildo. But also...
Here's the direct link to Dana White attack. Jon Jones, the host, explicitly mentions White openly addressing Jon Jones' hip surgery and plagued by severe. Dana's public revelation of Jones, especially in the context of his absence from a major event, can be seen as a strategic move. It paints a picture of a champion whose physical condition makes him an unreliable asset, thereby legitimizing his exclusion from the White House card and any future plans. It's not a direct attack on his character, but its immediate future as a fighter, subtly suggesting his career is winding down due to UFC opting to snub a healthy, willing champion.